Hello, equestrians. So today's topic is how long or how much time does it take to actually effectively and properly work out and exercise my horse? So it's a big question. I know that there's a whole lot of factors involved in this question. So some of the questions that you need to ask yourself include how old is your horse? Is it a young green horse that's new in training? Has your horse been off of work for a very long time? Is your horse older? So there's a whole lot of factors when discussing this topic of how long or how much time does it take to properly exercise and work your horse. And then some other varying factors could be, what is your goal? So is your goal to do a 100-mile endurance ride? Is your goal to complete a show jumping course of 1.30 meters? Is it to do a dressage test or to do a specific dressage move that you've been building up to? So there's a whole lot of different factors here. If you don't have any goals and you've just been kind of floating around on your horse, then hopefully this video will help you a little bit to start shaping your rides with your horse. So that way you can start kind of incrementally increasing the training program of your horse and start building those nice top line muscles and increasing the fitness of your horse and so on and so forth. Now, I do want to say, like, a big caveat here, and this was something that my husband was kind of surprised to hear. So this is something that I want to say: never make your horse more fit than you are capable of handling. Okay, so if you are working with a very young 2-year-old stallion that has no ground manners, you probably don't want to make that 2-year-old stallion like super bulky and beefy like a Arnold Schwarzenegger pony, because his training is not equal to his fitness. So it depends on the training of the horse is how much I want to increase the fitness program of my horse. So another example, maybe not everyone has access to a young stallion, but for example, a lot of endurance horses, for example, I had a lady, a student of mine, her horse was super fit. I mean, it had qualified for WEG, okay, super fit horse. And because the horse was so fit, it got just so energetic and so hyper that the training of the horse outmatched the fitness of the horse. And it got to the point that the lady was terrified to ride her own horse because it was rearing all the time. It was so excited. It just wanted to run and run and run. And she couldn't handle it anymore. So, your fitness and your training, they have to be very complementary with each other. So that's one thing I want to say. So I just want to, so today's topic, and I'm just going to pull up a little screen share for you really quick, because I have a little diagram that I want to show you. Sorry, I know every time I have to share my screen, I get confused. Okay. So here, I'm going to show you just a little diagram. I know my writing and stuff is awful. So basically, this is the main thing that I want to cover today, is how you should be dividing up your time when you're training your horse. But then I'm also going to dive a little bit more into this. So obviously this is our, time, our pie. And let's say this is 1 hour. Okay. So if this is 1 hour, then, this is going to be 15 minutes. Your cool down is going to be 15 minutes. And then your main session is going to be 30 minutes. Are you going to be riding for, 5 hours? Are you doing a long endurance ride? Well, then obviously, you're not going to be doing, 3 hours of warm up and 3 hours of cool down and 2 hours of main. So you're going to have to kind of scale this a little bit. But what you have to know is that roughly we need about 15 minutes for warm up and about 15 minutes for cool down. And then our main session could be, 30 minutes plus. Okay. So again, this number kind of depends on what it is that you're doing for the day. Are you, doing dressage? Are you doing jumping? Are you doing a long endurance ride or trail ride or whatever? So this number, 15 minutes for your warm up and 15 minutes for your cool down, is a pretty good number. And this also depends on, again, how old is your horse? How young is your horse? How green is your horse? What is it that you're doing today? For a green baby horse, 15 minutes might be your entire ride. Okay. You get on, you start and stop and halt and turn right and turn left, and then you get off. Okay, so the entire process might be 15 minutes. So this chart could also include, maybe for that horse, warming up is actually, lunging on the ground. Maybe you lunge them for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So, 7 minutes each side. And then you ride them for 20 minutes or 15 minutes. And then, you cool them down, you let them graze on some grass, you let them, you brush them, you hang out with them, and you do that for another 15 minutes. So that might be the training plan of a baby, for example. So that is roughly, as far as like time-wise, what I wanted to just show you. And then again, so how long should I work my horse in order to effectively like build their muscles and get the top line developed, and all those things that we always want to achieve as equestrians? And this is the fun part for me, because I have a lot of riders, and they think that in order to make your horse super fit, you have to like ride them a lot. You have to ride them, 6 days a week, and you have to ride them for 3 hours every single day, or, you have to do all this crazy like workout plan. So I'm going to share with you when I worked at a few different like Olympic and Grand Prix stables, and I'm going to share with you what their training plan looked like. And then also I'm going to share with you my recommendation. And the biggest thing that I will say is it doesn't take as much time as you would think, and it doesn't take as much hard work as you would think. So a lot of endurance riders who can ride for 8 hours, you put them in an arena with me for 20 minutes and they're like sweating and they're like tired and they're like, please, can this lesson be over now? Like they're pooped because, they know how to go up and down and trot for 4 hours, but they don't know how to do the dressage or the fitness. And it's the same for their horse a lot of times. If their horse doesn't have the correct muscles, that horse might be able to cruise around and trot for 4 hours. But again, does it know how to actually use itself and carry itself correctly? Because you're not going to have a horse in a frame for a 4-hour ride. You're just not. But is that horse able to use itself? So I can often achieve in 20 or 30 minutes with a horse more than somebody who, went out on a 5-hour trail ride. So it's not about, I'm just going to ride my horse for 5 hours and then like my horse will be super fit. It's not about that. It's about the quality, not the quantity. So even if you can only ride your horse a couple of times a week or 3 times a week or, whatever it is, like that's all it takes. Okay. That's all it takes. And you don't have to, have this crazy like training plan where you chase your horse in circles for 5 hours a day or something like that. So when I worked at an Olympic yard and a few different Grand Prix stables, so these were both eventing, they were show jumping, and I also worked with a lot of like Grand Prix dressage horses. So all across the board, the training plan was usually about the same. The horses in the daytime they would sleep at night in the stall. These were high-level competition yards, so the horses were basically wrapped with bubble wrap at night. They had their little like polo wraps and blankets and all these things, tail wraps or whatever it was. But in the daytime, they would go out in their little paddocks or their little fields, and they would just kind of hang out and be horses for most of the day. And then usually we would rotate the horses, so every horse would get ridden at least once a day, and then they would have another fitness exercise of some kind. Maybe it was a hot walker, maybe it was a treadmill or something like that, treadmill with an incline, or maybe it got ridden twice, but once was a like kind of a hack out on a little trail. So going for a little walk, basically. So during the kind of, let's say, extra exercise, so either, lunging or hot walker or treadmill or something, the horses would be on the hot walker for like maybe 30 minutes. So maybe 15 minutes to the right, 15 minutes to the left, and then job done. Always in walk. They were never, ever, ever trotting, always walking. Not slow, like lazy walking, they walking with a purpose, I would say, but always in walk. So the horses, I would say the best training for horses is walking. I think a lot of people forget how important walking is. And I would say even for endurance riders, I had a girl, she's a friend of mine, she's in Belgium, and she rode a lot of endurance horses. And she told me, like, when I wanted to prepare for an endurance competition, you know what I did? I went for a walk. I just would walk my horse on the trail for, an hour or two or whatever. And she's like, I just did that like every other day. Every other day we went for an hour-long walk, and I would show up to the endurance show and my horse was fit enough. So, walking definitely goes a long way, especially if you're asking the horse to kind of carry itself correctly, step with its hind feet under its belly and sort of track up, as we call it. So walking is definitely very good. And then as far as the actual work, like the working session that you would do with your horse, so if you are riding them, so as I said, if you know how to ask a lot of your horse, you don't really need to ride them very much. Okay, so an hour might be pushing it. an hour-long ride might be too much, especially if it's a horse that isn't quite developed yet. So, if it's not able to do the piaffe or the passage or, a meter 60 jumps, if it doesn't have that muscle and strength yet, then an hour long, if you are working it correctly, is most likely too much. So typically, if I'm training a horse and I'm training it for, future competitions or whatever, then that horse would probably get ridden between 30 to 40 minutes. And again, 10, 15 minutes of it is warm up. So you're not asking a whole lot in the warm up. So, you're only asking the horse to work very heavily for maybe 20 or 30 minutes. I will say when it comes to jumping, things are a little bit different because obviously there's jumps involved. So when it comes to jumping, then what I would do is I would do a lot of dressage stuff during the week and on jumping day. So I would only jump or do pole works or cavalettes or like grids or something, maybe once, maybe twice a week. Usually probably once a week. Not a whole lot of jumping, to be honest, because most of the jumping is fixed with dressage, to be honest. So on jumping day, where I am doing jumps or pole works or grids with my horse, then on that day, I might again do my 15 minutes warm up and then do kind of a separate warm up with the jumps. So, warming up over poles or warming up over little baby X's or something like that. It kind of depends on what your goal is for the day. Are you jumping a course that day, or are you jumping a grid and you kind of slowly build up the grid, or are you just doing pole exercises that day? In that case, it doesn't take a whole lot to warm up for that. So yeah, that kind of depends. But for jumping, I would say, then you're going to be riding for about an hour because of the jumps. And I think an hour is pretty comfortable, especially if, with jumping, obviously there's some setup involved. So you jump a jump, and then if the pole knocks down, somebody's got to put the pole back up, and then try it again. And then you talk about it for a little bit and then you try it again. So there's a little bit of standing around sometimes in jumping as well. So it kind of depends. But anyways, so that is roughly the structure. I'm going to show the map just once more, my little clock, just so you guys can see that once more. Let me just share my screen again. So again, this is roughly how you should break up your ride sessions. And again, if it's 3 times a week or once a week, like however much time you have to ride, it's more important that you walk. Walking for your horses is very good, very beneficial. So if you don't have access to a hot walker or something like that, like ride them out on a trail, like plan to do that once a week or twice a week or whatever. So walking, that is definitely a great way of building up your horse. And then when it comes to divvying up your time, plan for a big chunk of your ride to be warm up. And then equally another chunk of your time to be cooling down the horse properly, letting them walk and stretch and just kind of get their breathing back to normal and really relax and cool off. And then your main session, again, time-wise, that sort of depends on what it is that you're doing, but that could be anywhere from, 20, 30 minutes up to, if you're on a endurance ride for 3 hours or 4 hours or whatever, or if you're doing jumping, then maybe your main session is 40 minutes. So again, that just kind of depends. So yeah, hopefully you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, please comment in the chat. I love it when I hear from you guys. So yeah, just comment if you have any questions about this topic or about any topic really. And I'm trying to do these videos pretty regularly, so be sure to subscribe or like our Facebook page if you haven't already. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and also leave my email. You guys can reach me via email and just let me know what questions you have, or if you have any like special topics that you're really curious about or you would like to hear about, then yeah, send me an email. Boop, 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 send me an email. And I love it when I hear from you guys. So hopefully you guys have found this video helpful, and now you have a little bit of a structure and a plan about how long and what kind of time it takes into training your horse and working with them. So that is all for now, and happy trails.